What's up, everybody? Welcome to SLC Puck. I'm your host, Austin Facer, and I'm a little sad. We just witnessed the Utah Hockey Club drop a 3-1 decision to the Ottawa Senators, so excuse me if I'm not attacking the episode with the usual zest that you guys have come to know and love me for. But, I'm just a little bit bummed. But I'll tell you this, I really shouldn't be, because I think the Utah Hockey Club has done a lot of good things in the time from whence we last spoke. They played 3 games since we last spoke. That's kind of crazy. They played 3 games in a 4-day stretch. 2 of those up north. Our neighbors to the north in Canada hosted the Clubbers for a couple games. Utah lost both those games, actually, but they did win the game before. A decision up in Minnesota. So if you think about it, the Utah Hockey Club really ran the gamut with touring some of the biggest hockey hotbeds in the world. They were in Canada last 2 games. They played Minnesota the game before that. Utah's getting on the map in the hockey world. That's pretty cool, right? But I'll tell you what's really cool. And did I introduce myself already? I think I did. Yeah, I'm Austin Facer. I'm the host of SLC Puck. I'm also the proprietor of the coolest merch shop in town. I'm talking about slcpuck.shop. Got lots of great stuff here. Little Puckers t-shirt is awesome. Excited for that to come in. Get my nephew in one of those. But we got hoodies, beanies, other t-shirts, pieces of flair, stickers. What more could you ask for from a merch shop? I really don't know. Really happy, excited to bring that stuff to you guys. So go ahead and check it out. All the stuff is priced pretty good right now. That might change in the future, so stay tuned. Now is the time to get in on SLC Puck merch while you have the chance. It's a great way to support the show. But if you like the show, and we're on episode 77 right now of SLC Puck. Hard to believe, right? That's kind of crazy. If you like the show, if you love the show, a great way to show your support is to like, comment, subscribe, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. We'll turn this into a multi-level marketing operation here, where you get 5 friends to subscribe to SLC Puck. They'll get 5 friends to subscribe to SLC Puck. It's going to grow tremendously. That kind of thing is huge here in Utah. I think that's a really great idea. I'm going to workshop that some more to see how we can build an army that way. But anyway, as I was saying, the Utah Hockey Club has played 3 games since we last spoke. They went 1-2 in those 3 games. The one victory, and I really hate to say this. I don't want to sound boastful. I don't want to sound like I'm pompous. I don't think it's an exaggeration to suggest that I might be the smartest sports podcaster in America, though. Because I called it! I knew our boy, the Capitan, El Capitan, Clayton Keller, was going to get up to play Minnesota on Thursday. I said, I know it. He's already hot. He's on an incredible point streak coming in this game already. He's been playing really, really well. He had 1 goal, 3 assists against St. Louis, and then had another great game against Winnipeg. He scored an empty netter, and that one nearly had another. He took a puck to the eye. The dude's been on fire. The dude's been in fuego ever since he was left off of the United States team for the 4 Nations face-off. Who left him off that team? You remember, we talked about this. Billy Guerin, the general manager of the Minnesota Wild, did, and I knew he would pay the price for that decision. I knew it. I called it. And sure enough, woo, Clayton Keller proved me right. Utah beat Minnesota 4-0, and guess who scored in that one? Clayton Keller. It's so innate, the feel I have for the sports world. It's so embedded. I owe that to my father, sports writer at the Deseret News for so long. I just know when things are going to happen. It's a gift. I wish I could teach it. I wish I could impart it. Again, it's just so naturally embedded in who I am. But I made another prediction too. And guess what? This one came true as well. I said, I think Utah and Clayton Keller are going to play really well against Minnesota on Thursday. Friday's going to be a lot tougher. And it was. They played the Winnipeg Jets for the 2nd time in like 3 games. And I said, listen, this game might be a scheduled loss for the Utah Hockey Club. They're on the 2nd game of a back-to-back on the road. They're playing against a Winnipeg team that they beat handily in Salt Lake the week before, a game in which after which Winnipeg's coach, Scott Arniel, and I did remember that name this time, spoke to the media and called it the most embarrassing performance of the year. I think he used an expletive in describing that as well. It might have been the same expletive Will Hardy used to describe a Utah Jazz game last year, I think. I'll have to check that. But anyway, I was like, so Utah's going to come in a little bit tired after playing the night before in Minnesota, and they're going to face a very motivated Winnipeg team. This has scheduled loss written all over it, and sure enough, that's what it was. Utah dropped that one 5-2. So I wasn't too heartbroken about that. And besides, Winnipeg's the best team in the Western Conference this year. I think we all kind of saw that one coming, but it was great to hear just how optimistic the team was after that. Andre Tourigny, the head coach of the Utah Hockey Club, spoke to the media after the game on Friday and said he was very happy with their effort. He said, I think if we continue to progress and show improvement and resiliency this way, however it ends up at the end of the year, we're going to look back at this with a smile. And that's kind of a weird thing to say after a loss. I don't think a lot of people smile after losses, really. I've been in the Utah Hockey Club locker room after losses. There was not a lot of smiling happening in there. I've also been in the locker room after Clayton Keller took the puck to the face and there was blood all over his face. That was gross. But anyway, the point being, yeah, that was an interesting thing for the Utah Hockey Club to say and to express after that loss. But again, I wasn't heartbroken. I think that was kind of on the schedule makers' fault more than anybody else's. But after that, Utah gets a night off and then heads over to the capital of Canada, Ottawa. And that's the game we just got done watching. We're recording this about 6:30 p.m. on Sunday, January 26th. I'm guessing you'll probably be listening to this maybe on Monday on KSL.com or Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you find it, right? But we're talking just a few minutes after that game ended. Ottawa wins 3-1. Utah got one lucky goal by who? Clayton Keller. He's hot as can be. That's his seventh straight game with a point. He's been on fire. That was kind of a weird goal. I think he was intending more of a pass across the slot to somebody and kind of bounced off a couple of Ottawa guys and ended up in the back of the net. But hey, count it. Still a goal. Still continues his point streak there. But in the third period of that one, Ottawa's veteran players got going there. Claude Giroux, Brady Tkachuk scored twice in the second period. They pulled away for the win. So Utah falls to 1-2 on the since we last spoke, this little road trip. They're headed back home, though. They're going to play the Pittsburgh Penguins on Wednesday. And it's a very interesting game to have on the schedule at this time of the year. And I'll talk about that more in just a second because I, again, am trying to get my the oracle out of me and make a prediction on that. And it's a scorching hot take. I'm not even going to say that this is something that will happen. I'm not going to be that bold. The Keller goal against Minnesota, I called that one. I said that is definitely happening. The thing that I'm going to predict on regarding Utah, Minnesota this week, or Utah, Pittsburgh, I should say, this week, I'm less certain, but I wouldn't be surprised if this happens. And I think this could be something that sends shockwaves throughout the National Hockey League. But before we get into that, let's just go back to the standings here. I said we were going to talk about this every episode while Utah was still in the hunt. And I think we could say they still are. I mean, there's a lot of work that has to be done. They've got to pick up the pace at a certain point and really rack up wins in a big way. But let's just jump over to the NHL playoff standings right here. Again, I say this every time. Quick refresher. I know a lot of folks around here are new to hockey, so this is just getting you up to speed. In the NHL, 2 conferences, 2 divisions in each conference. Top 3 teams in each division make the playoffs, plus 2 wildcard teams, right? So let's scroll down to the Western Conference. Utah is in the Central Division. Top of that division, Winnipeg Jets. They're also at the tippy top of the Western Conference. So they're in. Let's look at those Western slots. That's Winnipeg, Dallas, Minnesota. So that win over Minnesota was huge the other night. And then jump down to the wild card, which is the chase that Utah will be in. That first wild card spot is held right now by the Colorado Avalanche with 60 points. The second spot by Calgary with 50. I have a really hard time with the THs. And I listen to myself say Dylan Gunther's name, and I say Gunner. THs are where I struggle, guys. I need some help with my phonetics. If I could get like a speech therapist on staff here to help me get things, going in the right direction. That would be big. If anybody listening out there is a speech therapist and would be willing to take me on pro bono just for the betterment of this podcast, please slide in to the comments. That would be very much appreciated. That could dramatically alter the trajectory of this podcast, which is, we need that. We need your help. So consider it a good charitable cause. Anyway, let's get back to the wild card standings. So again, Colorado, Calgary, they're in right now, the 2 wild card spots. Then jumps down. The first team on the outside looking in is Vancouver with 52 points. Behind them, the St. Louis Blues with 50 points. And behind them, the Utah Hockey Club with 49. So right now, Utah Hockey Club 6 points out of the standings. Remember, wins in regulation worth 2 points. A tie or a tie in regulation, overtime loss is worth 1. So again, getting these regulation wins and racking them up quickly, getting on a little bit of a streak is going to be increasingly more important for the Utah Hockey Club if they want to make a playoff run. And so I think that, again, that Minnesota game was huge. Disappointing to drop the second game to the Jets. That could have helped them make up some ground there as well. But, again, there's still a lot of hockey left to be played. They played 49 games already. So by my math, they have 33 games left to go in the season. So a lot can happen. And as we've seen in the NHL this week, a lot can happen and happen very quickly. The big story in the National Hockey League this week, a blockbuster trade, a 3-team trade. And I think it really is sort of it's sort of like, I'm trying to think of like it's sort of like an indicator of things that come. Like to me, this trade we saw in the National Hockey League signals the start of trade season in a big way in the NHL. The trade I'm referring to, 3-team trade, and I'll just simplify this just for the sake of saying it quickly. 3-team trade between Colorado, Chicago, and Carolina, all teams that start with the letter C. So that's an interesting tidbit there. Colorado sends Mikko Rantanen to Carolina. Carolina acquires him as well as Taylor Hall from Chicago. In exchange, the Avalanche acquire Marty Necas. Excuse me, I looked up his pronunciation too. I was so excited to get that right. Necas, I believe is how you say it. Necas. He's having a career year for the Carolina Hurricanes. So apologies to him for mispronouncing his name. So let's just go over it again. So the Hurricanes acquire Mikko Rantanen from the Avalanche and Taylor Hall from the Blackhawks. In the deal, they send Marty Necas. I think I said that right that time. And Jack Drury, as well as a 2nd-round pick and a 4th-rounder in 2026 to the Avalanche. The Blackhawks receive a 3rd-round pick and take on half of Rantaten's salary. So the reason why Colorado made this deal, and Mikko Rantaten's a great player. He's probably one of the top 10 players in the NHL. And you got to think Colorado, like they're in the wild card spot. They have like a very limited window to win another Stanley Cup. They won a cup recently, and they're trying to make a big run to do so. But they're taking on a guy who's really hot right now, Marty Necas, and Jack Drury's a solid player as well. And the reason for that is because Mikko Rantanen is going to be a free agent this summer, and so they could play with him for the whole year, maybe make a run at a Stanley Cup, and then in the summer either have to pay him an exorbitant amount of money or run the risk of losing him in free agency. I think they made this deal just so they could get something of value for him, something that would still help them win a Stanley Cup. Necas is going to be that guy for them. But Carolina is also going all in on this. So they get a great player in Rantanen, and will probably have the inside track on signing him as a free agent in the summer. So it's a deal that I think both teams might be happy with. I think we're only going to be able to grade it at the end of the year. If one of those two teams wins the Stanley Cup, then that one's going to feel really good about it. The other probably less so, I would say. But again, it's a trade that sends shockwaves throughout the NHL. And it's been reported that it's just the beginning of some very interesting deals that might be made in the National Hockey League. And if you don't follow Frank Saravelli of the Daily Faceoff, he's essentially the Adrian Wojnarowski of the NHL. He's the guy who's the newsmaker, who's breaking all the news. In fact, I think he broke the news that the Coyotes were going to be coming to Utah first. So this is the dude who's in the know. I am just, gathering intel from him and other places. I don't know anything. I have no insider information. I'm doing a podcast in a basement, for crying out loud. But it seems to me, what I can gather is that there is a very significant chance that Pittsburgh Penguins star Sidney Crosby may get traded to the Colorado Avalanche at some point this week, which it would be a fascinating development. It kind of mirrors when Ray Bourque was traded from the Boston Bruins to the Avalanche to pursue a Stanley Cup at the end of his career. Crosby, kind of a similar story. He's won a few cups with the Penguins, but they are struggling right now. I mean, they are near the bottom of the Eastern Conference. They have virtually no chance. I mean, there's still a chance. They're not like horribly out of it. I mean, the last wild card spot is held right now by the Tampa Bay Lightning with 55, but the Penguins have to go through a ton of other teams to climb the ladder. They have 48 points. They're near the bottom of the Eastern Conference. So if you're Crosby and you've been playing in the league for like 20 years already, you're kind of running out of chances to win another Stanley Cup. And I'm sure, as much as he'd love to have, the legacy of, playing in Pittsburgh his entire career and all that, I think, if you're the Penguins as well, it's like you can expedite a rebuild in a big way by trading away Crosby and getting a lot of assets. And for Crosby, it's another chance at a Stanley Cup. And it seems like the Avalanche are like considered to be a somewhat likely destination if this happens, just based on what I've been reading in the news. Right. By the way, read the news. It's a great way to get the news. Don't just listen to podcasts. People who podcast do it in basements. They're freaking weirdos. You should go out and read, people. That's where you get the good stuff. But it seems like that this is very much in play. As far as like when it's going to happen, I don't know. I think, again, Frank Saravelli kind of reported that this really heated up over the weekend. And it's going to be kind of an interesting situation for people who have tickets to see the Penguins play the Utah Hockey Club at the Delta Center on Wednesday, because I'm certain that a lot of those people were looking forward to seeing Sidney Crosby in Salt Lake City. I hope he's still there. If you put good money down to see Sidney Crosby and the Penguins come to Delta Center this Wednesday, I hope you get to see him. I hope nothing crazy happens, because if he gets traded to Colorado, you're not going to see him this year in Salt Lake City. The Avalanche have already played both the games they're going to play in Utah already. That's it. This is your chance to see Sidney Crosby on Wednesday, and it might be gone before it ever comes to fruition. That would be pretty interesting. And again, I really hope that happens for people who are, especially people who are longtime hockey fans. I'm certain there's a good deal of Penguins fans here in Utah. They're one of those teams that have like a lot of cachet in the hockey world. Mario Lemieux, Jaromir Jagr, Stanley Cups. We all love the Penguin logo. Don't forget the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, where he played the goalie. Sudden death. Yeah, Jean-Claude Van Damme, where he stops the bomb from going off at the Penguins game in the Stanley Cup Finals, and somehow he ends up playing goalie and making a save, presumably by doing the splits, I would imagine. But anyway, there's a lot that you could think of when you think of the Pittsburgh Penguins, right? But if Crosby does come and he's still a member of the Penguins at that point, that's gonna be really, really special and fun for people here in Utah to see him, because he's one of the game's all-time great players. He broke into the league like at 17, 18, had so much pressure on him, kind of in the same way like a lot of these like young guys now sort of get scouted and looked at from like a very young age. Like they knew Sidney Crosby was going to have a chance to be a terrific NHL player from the time he was a teenager, and he's kind of answered the call in the same way LeBron James has lived up to expectations. You could say Sidney Crosby has as well. And so, again, if you have tickets to go on Wednesday, you put good money down to see Crosby and the Penguins. I hope he's still there. I really do. That'll be something to watch over the next few days. We'll be there. I'll be there with my family. I'll be wearing my SLC Puck customized jersey, the same one you see me wearing right now. If you see me in the arena, come by and say hi. I'd love to chat with those of you who listen and watch the show. And that's been a lot of fun lately. I went to a watch party recently. That was where I saw the Minnesota game, actually. I saw the Minnesota game at Gracie's, downtown Salt Lake City, the Utah Hockey Club did an official watch party there at Gracie's. And I got to tell you, I think that's like something that's going to be a really fun opportunity for the Utah Hockey Club community over the next 50 million years while the team's here in Utah. The watch parties are a lot of fun. I think we have some great bars here in Salt Lake City. Fisher is one of my favorites. I think they would be an awesome location for a watch party. But it was fun to be there. You know, the Anheuser-Busch folks were there doing giveaways and all that. I had the opportunity to meet a couple people who listened to the podcast there. That's a crazy experience to me. People recognize me out in the wild. And I believe also I've taken a couple pictures with people, and that's super weird. Like my guy, Nate, I'm trying to pull up his name because I really appreciated him coming up and say hi. I believe his name was Nate. Let me just make sure. Yeah, I think it was Nate. Nate came by and said hi. We took a picture. I won a raffle drawing. I got a puck and a hat, and I threw the hat to Nate. I threw a puck to some nice young lady who was also sitting there watching the game. It's fun. It's fun to be a part of these things. And, you know, it's something that the Utah Hockey Club is actively getting involved with. I happen to know that Nashcast may be involved with future watch parties, so keep an eye out for that. But here, if you're not aware of this, check this out. So if you go to the Utah Hockey Club's website, they actually have a page where they list some of these official watch parties where they have great giveaways from the Anheuser-Busch folks. Get some Utah Hockey Club gear. I'm going to try to go to as many of these as I can. But you can see here on Thursday, we watched the Minnesota game there. Looks like the next one that the Utah Hockey Club is putting on is going to be on February 8th. Saturday, 11 a.m. in Tooele. I don't know if I'll be able to make that one. That one seems far. How early am I gonna have to get up to get to Tooele by 11? It'd probably take me like 4 hours, right? I'm joking, of course. People who live on the east side of Salt Lake have no idea where Tooele is, but no, I'm sure that one's gonna be a lot of fun. I bet they'll probably have a packed house there. I would imagine. It'll be a lot of fun. That's at the bout time in Tooele. Another one, March 7th at Black Sheep, West Jordan. I've never been to Black Sheep. I'm sure that one sounds like a lot of fun. They'll be playing the Blackhawks that day. And then on the 18th of March, taking on the Oilers. That one's going to be at the Break in Saratoga Springs. So that's a cool one. This is an interesting one to see the Kings on the Utah Hockey Club play against the Los Angeles Kings April 3rd at Big Willie's. That's a very divey bar just outside of downtown. It's on 17 South Main Street in Salt Lake City. That's going to be a really, really cool one. The Break in Murray looks like they're hosting one on April 15th. That's Utah against St. Louis. So that one should be a ton of fun as well. So again, check that out. Utah Hockey Club has that page on their website. I go ahead and find a place to watch a game with good folks, good community, great giveaways, some bevies, some bar food, lots of fun. And even outside of like these official ones that the Utah Hockey Club is putting on, I know there's like other people who are getting like very actively involved with making their own watch parties. The guys who do the Puck Drop podcast, as well as Jay Stevens, who does Utah Puck Report for KSL Sports. They did a watch party on Friday at Beer Bar, which is a great bar in downtown Salt Lake City. I am very interested in maybe having SLC Puck watch parties. I know that's something that some of you guys have expressed interest in as well. In my mind, it just seems like a complicated thing to try to figure out. But so if anyone is willing to help me arrange one of these things, figure out how to put it together, I would really, really appreciate that. But I think that that's something we could do as a community and have a lot of fun as we cheer on the Utah Hockey Club. And I said this last episode, I said, I have a feeling they're going to be called the Utah Hockey Club for another year, because it was reported last week by my good friend Ryan Miller at KSL.com that the nickname ordeal didn't go super well for the Utah Hockey Club brass last week. The trademark for a lot of their preferred names was rejected, namely the Yeti trademark. I think, again, not controversial to say, I think that that's been the heavy favorite to be the name of the team. You know, we've heard that from Clayton Keller. We've heard that from Bill Armstrong. Chris Armstrong has sort of alluded to it a little bit. He's saying, hey, I think the fans have made it very clear to us what they want the team to be called. And I think if you just get a feel for it on social media or the general sentiment around the team, it does seem like Yeti is kind of the overwhelming favorite. But again, the trademark issues are sort of an obstacle there. And it seems like the Yeti Cooler Company, you know, they make those. They're not Stanley Cups. They're rugged. They're tough. You know, they're those guys. You know, and they make a similar mug to the Stanley Cup and not the hockey Stanley Cup. See, this is all very confusing, right? All these names. There's Stanley Cup. There's the Stanley Cup. There's the Utah Yeti, and then there's Yeti who makes cups as well. Intertwined, right? It's a big mess, right? But Ryan Miller, my guy, had a great report this week that I encourage you to hop over and check out. If you're listening to me on KSL.com, you should be able to get over this real quick. Not over yet. Very clever, Ryan. How the Utah Hockey Club can still become the Yetis. I'm hoping they do the Yeti. I'll be honest, I kind of like the singular version more. I think that kind of grew on me a little bit. Kind of like the Seattle Kraken do theirs singular. You know, I think I kind of like Yeti more. But regardless, Ryan here has a great story. He talked to an IP lawyer, just sort of hashing out how this could work. Again, obviously there's an issue. There was a likelihood of confusion, right? And according to Ryan, according to attorney Jason Sanders, who was involved in the Cookie Wars case in Utah, and this is all interesting. How many little components of Utah culture come together? You know, people love the Stanley Cups. People love Yeti coolers. People love cookies. People are excited about the hockey club. It's all intermingling, very funny in a very funny way. But you know, hear what Jason Sanders said. He's the lawyer that Ryan Miller spoke with. Said that you could get around the confusion by saying, "Hey, look, if you're both in the clothing space, you can have the word Yeti. It's an easy call. It's likely that people get confused." Sanders said, but there's a massive difference, right? No one's going to be buying a Utah Yeti shirt mistakenly thinking they're buying a Yeti Cooler t-shirt. I agree with him. So if I was responding to the office action, this is where I would be hanging my hat the most. Sanders continued, he'd also point out that sporting goods consumers often know exactly what they want, which is true, and aren't likely to be confused over a sports team with the same name. I think in this case, because the trade channels used are so massively different and the kind of consumer you go after, I think that there's a good chance you could get it through, Sanders said. But he said there is also an easier way, and this is something to keep an eye on here. You could just come to an agreement with Yeti. Sanders said there's an agreement called either consent or coexistence agreement where you just say, hey, we're both going to agree that we're selling in different channels and it's okay to move forward. I wonder if that requires some sort of financial agreement with the Yeti Cooler Company. I would think perhaps. So we'll keep an eye on that. Again, it's a fascinating story that is surrounding the team. I am more optimistic than I was last episode that the team will have a name for next year. Chris Armstrong himself came out and said that. He said, hey, we get it. Yeah, you know, the first round of trademark issues didn't come through, but we are promising our fans that we will skate out under our permanent name next season, 2025, 2026 schedule season. So again, I think the preferred name is Yeti. I'm hoping for that. I don't want Yetis. I think they're going to find a way to get that done. I wonder, I'm curious if that'll come in the form of some kind of agreement with the Cooler Company. So there you go. Way to go, Yeti Cooler Company. You scored big on that one. So anyway, a lot of fun happening. Utah Hockey Club is going to be back home. Like I said, they're playing the Pittsburgh Penguins on Wednesday. We'll see if Crosby's still around for that one. That's going to be interesting to watch. And they're home for a while. They play Pittsburgh on Wednesday, Columbus on Friday, St. Louis on Sunday, and then the Philadelphia Flyers on Tuesday. But we'll talk before that. Next episode will be what day are we? Today's Sunday. We'll be talking to you guys on Wednesday. So again, I'm going to be at the game against Pittsburgh. Ooh, that's a late start, 7:30. So how am I going to get that done? I guess I'll just have to come home and record an episode late on Wednesday, or we'll figure that out. We'll talk soon. You won't hear from me before the Pittsburgh game. That's what I'll say. I'll talk to you guys after the Pittsburgh game. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. SLC Puck on all the social medias. I'm getting a lot more involved with TikTok and Instagram lately, putting up some different kind of content on there. So check it out. We'll also have some fun stuff coming up as well. Maybe a sponsor. So. And that's something that'll benefit you guys in a big way. And don't forget, call into the SLC Puck hotline. Give your hot takes on anything related to what I said. That number is 919-666-PUCK-7825. Lots of stuff here to plug at the end. Got a lot going on. We already did 29 minutes here. Let's check out. We'll talk to you guys soon.